If you run RevOps in HubSpot, I can almost guarantee that you have built some version of this workaround. You have a renewal pipeline full of deals pretending to be contracts. Then you have a spreadsheet pretending to be your source of truth for ARR, and a workflow that kinda automates parts of the renewal process. This can work until someone forgets to process a renewal, or finance discovers that the spreadsheet and the CRM differs by thousands of euros. As of June 2026, HubSpot has introduced a native contracts object inside of the newly renamed Revenue Hub. The salesperson manages the opportunity in a deal and creates a quote from the deal. When the buyer accepts or signs the quote, HubSpot automatically creates the contract, provided the automatic contract creation setting is enabled. This newly created contract will inherit the line items, terms, and other details from the deal and the quote, and HubSpot also automatically associates it with the quote and the deal, contact, and company connected to that quote. In this video, I'll show you how the contracts object works, how you can manage renewals inside of HubSpot Sales and Revenue Hub, what it costs, and its current limitations. By the end, you'll know whether to adopt it, wait, or keep your existing setup. The HubSpot Commerce Hub was recently renamed to the Revenue Hub, and this is the hub which allows you to quote, bill, and collect payments through HubSpot. When using the deal pipeline inside of the Sales Hub in HubSpot, you can configure a quote, and this quote can contain the pricing, the billing frequency, and so on. This information can be transferred to a contract inside of HubSpot, so a separate contract record, which will contain a lot of the same information, like TCV, total contract value, annual recurring revenue, monthly recurring revenue, start date, end date, renewal date, and so on. And this will allow for a lot of reporting and automation inside of HubSpot. If you have activated the contracts object and you have access to the Revenue Hub, you can go to Settings, then to Objects, and then choose the contracts object. Make sure you have activated the Create Contract Records from Accepted Quotes. This will automatically create the contract based on the approved quotes that your clients have signed. You can also activate the deal creation settings here, where you can automatically create new deals for change quotes and also for renewal quotes. Now, let's imagine I run a SaaS company and I want to close a deal inside of HubSpot, create a quote, and then create a contract. On the left side, you have information about this deal, such as the annual recurring revenue, you have the monthly recurring revenue, total contract value, you have the currency, you have the close date, you have the create date, but you can also add information such as the start date, renewal date, and so on. On the right side of the deal record, I have my associations. This is the associations with the deal, such as the contacts involved in the deal, the companies involved in the deal. From the deal record, I can create a new quote. So I can choose to create a new quote, update an existing contract, or renew an existing contract. So you just click on Add here. You can then choose create a new quote, or update an existing contract, or renew an existing contract. So if you have upsells and so on, you can update it from here. You will then pull information automatically from the deal. So if one of your sales reps has entered an amount already, this will be pulled from the deal record, and then you choose the template. So if you have branded templates, you can just, of course, have a template that's branded with your logo, your colors, your fonts, and so on. When editing a quote, you can use the built-in AI features from HubSpot, the Breeze AI features. You can use this to edit the text and update the quote using natural language. And on the left side, you can click on the different modules or sections to edit yourself. You then edit or add the different parties. So you add the buyer and the seller. And also you can add billing contact and billing company as well. On the quote, you can add your line items. So in HubSpot, you can have your own product library. So let's say you have different products or prices, price ranges. You can have a product library or price books with pre-configured pricing. So let's say you want to add a line item, and let's just remove this one, and I want to add the line item again. So let's just say I want to add this widget and it costs 100,000 euros. Then the quote will update with that price, and this is the price the client will sign off on. For this quote, we can edit this widget to be, let's say, a starter license, and let's say this is a SaaS license that we are billing on a monthly basis, and we're gonna pay or bill 12 months in a row. We can also give, let's say, a discount and so on. And let's say it's 1,000 euros per month. After creating a deal and then a quote, you will get a shareable link you can send to your prospects. Then the prospect can sign the quote using e-sign, and then you can also countersign to finalize the quote. Now, let's imagine we have sent out this quote to your prospect. They have approved and signed the quote. You can now go to the deal record and see that the quote has been accepted. Now, if you go to the left sidebar under revenue and contracts, you will see a new contract record has been created. As you can see, the user interface for the contracts record is very similar to other records inside of HubSpot. So you have the information about the contract on the left side, so you have the different properties, and this is something you can customize. You can use the native properties inside of HubSpot. You can also make your own contract properties. So if you want to add more information, you want to add more properties and data about your contracts, you can customize and add as you want. You also have billing information such as the payment method, net payment terms, collection process, billing information, and so on that finance needs to do their invoicing. In the middle section, you have the contract performance section. This can show information such as the total contract value, the annual contract value. It can show you ARR, MRR, and many other properties that you can add or remove depending on what kind of business and type of product you sell. Also, you can customize this, so if you want to add more tabs or change this information, you can do this. And also notice you can create change quotes or renewal quotes. So you can actually change this number. So if you add more licenses, more products, you can update this contract inside of HubSpot without using any external tool. If you go to the activities and history tab, you can see the history of this contract record. So if the record has changed owners, if there's been changes to the contract, upgrades, downgrades, and so on, you can access all this information here. On the right side, you have the associations, just like on the other type of records and objects inside of HubSpot. So let's say you associated these two contacts with the deal, they will automatically be assigned to this contract as well. The same goes for companies, line items, and deals. All the associations will be here on the right side. But do not confuse internal quote approval with buyer acceptance. If your company uses quote approval rules, the quote may need internal approval before it can be shared. But that approval does not create the contract. The contract is created when the buyer accepts or signs the quote. If you cannot access contracts, you might not have the proper subscription required. You need the Revenue Hub Professional or Enterprise, and anyone creating or editing contracts needs a Revenue Hub seat. So we will return to the pricing later. Also, before we go any further, there's a few things the contracts object does not do. The contracts object does not necessarily replace your legal contracts. If you have MSAs or signed PDFs, DPAs and so on, you might still need these to be signed and uploaded to HubSpot. So HubSpot suggests adding either a file or a URL property that links to other legal documents. And in the HubSpot Contracts and Quotes tool, there is no redlining, clause library, obligation management, and so on. So if you need a full contract lifecycle management tool, you might need to get a separate CLM tool in addition to HubSpot, such as GetAccept. Second, be aware that your customers will likely never see the contract record. So customers will receive quotes, invoices, receipts, but the contracts object is primarily an internal record that you can use for automation, for reporting, and so on. Now, when it comes to the costs, these are euro figures as of August 2026, so please verify before making any buying decisions. HubSpot charges for the Revenue Hub based on per seat. So you have a professional license and you have an enterprise license. There's no starter license as of this recording. You need to pay 85 euros per seat for the professional and 140 euros per seat for the enterprise. If your business is based in the US, UK, or Canada, you can use HubSpot Payments. This is not available to companies outside of these countries as of this recording. So if you're going to use the HubSpot Payments, they have a card processing fee of 2.9%, and the ACH processing is 0.8% and capped at $10. So if you're outside of these countries, you might need to use solutions such as Stripe or just regular invoicing, and this will be around 0.75% for the processing fee. So should you adopt the HubSpot Revenue Hub and the contracts object? If you're already using HubSpot for deal management, for sending quotes, and you want to report on recurring revenue, you're struggling with renewals being missed, or finance is struggling with reconciling ARR between HubSpot and spreadsheets or with an external tool, I would highly recommend looking into Revenue Hub and the contracts object, especially if you run a subscription-based company or like a SaaS company. When buying the HubSpot Revenue Hub, you can just turn on the automatic contract creation. You can configure renewal alerts, build workflows around the renewal dates, and then you can over time transition your existing customer base. In my opinion, for the core use case, mid-market B2B companies selling recurring revenue, contracts fills a very important gap in HubSpot's commercial platform. Teams will not get value from contracts simply by activating the feature, but they need to test it with a new business, define ownership, and follow a consistent renewal process. If you want help planning the setup, migration, and renewal automation, this is the kind of work we do at Superwork. I've added a link below if you want to use us to review your quote to cash setup and maybe consider implementing a Revenue Hub. So if this helped you to improve your HubSpot setup, please subscribe. I cover practical HubSpot and RevOps topics like this every week. I hope to see you in the next video.